Right. Welcome, welcome. Happy Tuesday. How's everybody doing? Welcome, welcome. Hey, Carly. Hey, Abby. Hi, Ella. Welcome, guys. Hi, Dennis. Hi, Joshua. Hi, Dren. McDonald. Welcome, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Hey, Nicole. Hey, Patrick. Peter. Rachel. Hey, Oscar. Thanks for coming in. Right, Jason. I did. Yeah, well, I am here. So curious. Put it in the chat if it's your first webinar with us. You can read. Let me know in the chat. You guys would need to get in the chat anyway, so. All right. Brady's not shy. Love that. You may notice that you don't have video capability. Okay. You have full chat capability. So we'll be chatting with you guys in the chat. Hey, Alex. Welcome, Nantor. Happy to have you. We'll get started in 1 minute, you guys. You guys are pouring in. Love it. Awesome. I love to see it. Welcome, Sufed. Welcome, Alex. Welcome, Peter. I love that you guys are not shy. You're gonna fit in real well. Hey, okay, guys. Welcome. Thanks for coming in. Now I'm curious where you guys are tuning in from. Where are you guys tuning in from? Let me know in the chat. I'll just be totally real with you guys. I'm in the UK right now. Literally in England. Awesome. Miami. Let's go. That's what's up. I know you're gonna be sad. I'm turning off the party. All my South Florida people. I know, guys. It's a work trip for my husband, so I got lucky. Got lucky, guys. I'll just be honest. Orlando, Hollywood, Port St. Lucie. Love it. Yeah, London, so cool. Didn't know, didn't realize. Really happy I got the opportunity. Really, really cool. But it just reminds me how blessed we are in South Florida with like nice airflow, less pollution. It is crazy over there. Miramar, Miami, Boca. Love it, you guys. I'm so happy you guys were able to tune in today. Welcome, everyone. Good morning for me, good afternoon, but for you, good morning. So happy to have you guys in here today for our webinar. This is BPM RIA, Broward, Palm Beach, Miami-Dade Real Estate Investors Association, your only local and approved chapter here in South Florida that is partnered with the National Real Estate Investors Association. My name is Alexa, COO here at BPM RIA. and I have an awesome webinar for you guys today. This is kind of like another vendor partner debut. We had a new vendor partner featured on our webinar last week, and now we have an awesome new vendor partner featured on our webinars this week, and I'm super happy to bring them in. They are Cap-Free Exchange. We have the vice president of sales. We also have the sales manager and one of their close um, professionals that they have graciously brought on here, Eric, and I'm excited to get them all in here for you. But we're going to be talking about building wealth with net leased single family rentals today. I'll just be giving you guys a couple housekeeping rules in a moment, but I want to start us off on a super positive note. And that is with a raffle. You guys already know they are so kind. I am so grateful that I can bring this raffle to you guys for attendees only. So we always want to thank you guys and give you credit for being on here for the live event and really taking the time with these professionals as their time is precious. And it's not every day that you get a chance to sit down with the vice president and sales manager, and my light died. So that's okay, guys. You'll be okay without that light. But we are so grateful that we have this raffle. So all you need to do is text CFX, all one word, no spaces there, CFX, to our event line 954-800-6961. I popped the details in the chat for you guys, and we will have two lucky winners winning a $100 Amazon gift card. So that is extremely fun. And I am so excited to announce the winner at the very end of today's webinar. So you do need to stick around until the end to enter the raffle. Details in the chat, people. I don't know about you people raising your hands in there, but you're not going to come on video or on audio. So get to the chat, find it. It's in your Zoom menu. Move your mouse around. You can do this. Send me a private message if you need Zoom assistance. I'll be there for you. So you guys enter the raffle. Details are in the chat. I'll pop it in again for anyone that's trickling on in, and I will announce the winner at the very end of today's class. All you need to do to get on our text list, it's super easy. It's my favorite way to keep up with events. But if you want to get those text message updates for our webinar, such as the one today, you get the text straight to your phone with the registration link, the details, the time, all that fun stuff. If you're interested in those, go ahead and text BPM REIA, all one word, no spaces, to our event line. It's 954-800-6961. Details are in the chat. So find that chat box, you guys. You're going to need it. There's a lot of you in here, and we don't want you to miss anything. So go ahead and find that chat box. BPM 2-day quick start. This is going to be our in-house 2-day boot camp. It is live on Zoom. Cameras are on, microphones are on. It's not a webinar, it's a meeting. All you need to do is go to the landing page that I just dropped in the chat. You'll get all of the details for our in-house boot camp. This is if you're interested in wholesaling, flipping, rehabbing. This is 2 full days with our CEO and lead mentor, with 4 local guest speakers that are featured on this training. We're going to bring in AI. We're going to bring in creative financing. We're going to bring in activities. You guys are going to be analyzing deals by day 2. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and click that link in the chat. Send me a message, send me an email. I'll be here to answer all of your questions about it and get you locked in. And I hope you do not miss this, because this will be the very last training of 2025. So we hope to see you all there, as this is the most consecutive time you'll get with us and our team. So it is awesome. Members, as you guys know, you get all the goodies. You get the member package, all those benefits to Home Depot, Millennial Insurance, Cama Plan, self-directed IRA, Avis, budget, all those incredible discounts. You also get in free for the 4 quarterly networking meetings that we have per year. Your guests also come in at a discount, only $10, and we are getting our last quarterly meeting posted within the next day or two. So if you don't have your membership, you're definitely going to want to get that. Access the National RIA benefit package, start getting those discounts. The discounts and benefits more than pay for your membership. So definitely go get your membership if you don't already have it. And if you need to renew, you can go ahead and renew on this link as well in the chat box, you guys. So last but very not least, one-on-one coaching and mentoring here at BPM RIA. Some of you may know that we have a one-on-one coaching program where we put up 100% of the money for our students' deals and split the profit 50-50. You do get your own personal coach. You get the whole pie. We give you everything that we could possibly give you. And then we split the profit 50-50 with you as long as we're putting up the money for your deals. So if you have any questions about our coaching program, please go book a discovery call. This will be a call with you, with me. I can get you the brochure with the full breakdown of everything we include in our coaching programs, as well as the pricing information. I know you're going to want to hear about it. So go ahead and book that discovery call so we can lock in some time together. And I can also help to see if this is a good fit for you, help you get to your goals, and hopefully we can start partnering together. So I will be, oh my goodness, you guys are so exciting. Please, if you guys do have questions, put those in the Q&A box just so I don't miss them. So I'll be over there in the chat just a second, but always want to take a moment to thank all of our vendor partners, such as Cap Free Exchange. Thank you to the National RIA for providing all of those benefits and all of those incredible discounts for all of our members. And just now need to give a couple housekeeping rules. I hate to make it boring for you guys, but please, please, please put your questions in the Q&A box. Yes, we are recording today's session. We will post it on the YouTube channel. So I'll be sure to link that in the chat for you guys. Make sure you guys are looking at the chat. I'll be having a lot of helpful links in there, social media pages, where to find Cap Free Exchange, who's our point of contact, all of that good stuff. So right now, take a moment to find that chat box and look in your menu as well for the Q&A box so I can make sure we direct your questions appropriately. Now, without further ado, I want to bring in our awesome speakers, Alec, Eileen, Eric. Thank you all so much for taking the time today. We really truly appreciate it. You can find Cap Free Exchange on our website under the Vendor Partners tab. Yes, they are a new vendor, but they've been doing this for a long, long time. And what they do, they're going to break it down for us today. And I'm just so happy that a lot of you guys took the opportunity to come on live because, again, we will be able to ask questions to them live, you guys. We'll be able to, you guys just have to put those in the Q&A box. We'll answer all your questions live, as many as we can possibly answer. We are running until 12:30 today. So we do have the time. You guys are the ones who will let us know if you want to take all that time or not. So we'll go ahead and oh, we'll get Lance in here. He's in here. Let me promote. Oh, he's in here. Okay, he's good. Lance is good. So we have a couple more people joining us and you'll see some unfamiliar faces, but you'll get to know them and they'll be awesome to come on here and just give us some more details and more insight and all that good stuff. So Alec, thank you for coming on here and bringing your team. We really appreciate it. I know that we haven't met in person yet, but I know you'll hopefully be coming out to maybe one of the quarterly meetings, maybe in November. You guys can come out and come meet the members, and we'll hopefully get you guys to come and get a table set up and things like that. But we're so excited to get that background information today so we can start getting to know you, getting to know Cap Free Exchange, how you guys can help us with our investing journeys. And yeah, just tell us what's going on in your world. We're excited and we're excited to learn. So thanks for
Awesome.
being.
Thank you, Alexa, and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Alexa and REA for the chance to present to you all. I'm joined by our sales manager today at Cap Free Exchange, Eileen Zakalski, and we're going to tell you all about our single tenant net leased investment opportunity in single family homes. Kind of just give you guys a glance into what our company does, as well as a lens into the formation of our company and the background. And also, for licensed real estate agents, how this can be a tool for you to secure more listings and also increase your commissions as well. I guess just quick agenda before we get started. We brought on a panel of subject matter experts. We have Eric Breacher, who's a qualified intermediary and 1031 exchange expert, as well as Lance Peterson to kind of give us an idea of what's going on in the Florida housing market overall. And after that, Eileen and I are going to go into, our presentation, and we'll definitely have some ample time towards the end to just go over any questions that you have or things we can clarify. And yeah, from there I'll turn it over to Eric, and then from there we'll go to Lance.
Okay. Well, let me get my screen shared. And while I'm doing that, where's my PowerPoint? Here we go. I want to thank Alec and Eileen for having me join BPM and the Real Estate Investment Association here. As I said, my name is Eric Brescher. I'm an attorney of 30 years. I hold a certified exchange specialist designation, for which there are only approximately 160 in the entire country. I serve as a qualified intermediary and have done so for the last 20 years. So we're going to talk about that role. We're going to talk about 1031 exchanges. I'm going to be speaking for about 20 minutes. So it's a very brief introduction into a very powerful tool that real estate investors can and should be using to defer capital gains and other taxes when selling investment property. This is going to be a very quick presentation, something that I typically speak for sometimes hours on. So I'm going to just hit high notes, and I'll just ask to table questions until after the presentation. I know we're going to have some time after everybody's, and I'll stick around to discuss that. So this is the actual tax code. Section 1031 of the code allows that no gain or loss shall be recognized when you have an exchange, when you have real property, when that property has been held for productive use in a trade or business or for investment, and when that real property is exchanged for other like-kind property. So we're going to talk about those statutory requirements, sort of quickly here. Something, again, I typically take a much deeper dive into. So the whole purpose of the exchange, and I should point out, this has been around since 1921. This is not a loophole. I often hear of it, some magic trick, loophole. No, this is doing exactly what the tax code intended it to do, to allow investors to defer and continue their investment. Now, long ago, from 1921 up until the 70s, maybe Alec had a piece of real estate, I had a piece of real estate. It used to be, done with other assets as well. And it was a simultaneous transaction where we would literally swap deeds. But in the 70s through the Starker case and into the 80s and 90s, where the code and regulations were fleshed out and changed, we now have this ability to defer even with our time periods. And so we'll talk about that. So, of course, at a top level, there is a federal capital gains tax for assets held greater than a year of 20%. Might be 15%, depends on the taxpayer's income. Also, depreciation recapture. As I trust you're all aware, when you have investment property for residential property, you can depreciate that over 27 and a half years. And for commercial property, over 39 years. That's the straight line depreciation. You might engage and do a cost segregation study and accelerate it even further. But depreciation takes into account the useful life of an asset, and it provides a offset against rental income on an annual basis. So that's a great thing. However, when you sell that asset, it is recaptured, and that recapture rate is 25%. State income tax, of course, I know many of you are in Florida, you have no state income tax, but for those of us in the bulk of the other states, you have a state income tax as well. And by the way, if you're, a Floridian and you have real estate outside of your state, you may still have a tax issue at that state level. And then lastly, the 3.8% net investment income tax. So a lot of tax due. Let's call it 35% just for simplicity. I mean, that adds up real quick. A lot of misconceptions around the notion of like kind and what you can do in an exchange. So hope to clear up some of those things. On the right-hand side, we have some of the strategies and advantages. First and foremost, diversification. So a taxpayer can diversify in 3 different ways. By asset class, you can sell a single family and buy a shopping center, or sell an office building, buy a single family, all interchangeable by way of it being real property. You can diversify by the number of assets. I am regularly asked, well, can I buy 2 properties? Yes, you can. You can buy multiple properties. We'll talk quickly about identification a little bit later. That might prove some challenges, but you can diversify by number of assets. And you can diversify, of course, geographically. So any property in the United States is eligible to be exchanged for other US property. Foreign property can also be exchanged, but also only for other foreign property. So you are never exchanging into or out of the US. Consolidation, conversely, you may have accumulated a number of investments. You can sell those and roll the money together if they are the same taxpayer into a single asset. If they're different taxpayers, you'd have to buy as tenants in common. I'm going to just very quickly around this. So the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which went into effect in January of 2018, repealed all things 1031 except for real estate. So as I mentioned earlier, from 1921 up until 2017, you used to be able to do exchanges of cattle or artwork or aircraft. Again, now it is only real property. So along the left-hand side, we have, all the things real property that you'd expect, including net lease property. And that, of course, is what Alec and Eileen are going to speak a little bit about, which is a great passive investment strategy. And in their case, again, 100% deeded ownership. Again, we'll talk about that. On the right-hand side here, things that don't qualify. So anytime you have an investor that, again, their intent is to sell that property, to liquidate it, that's not an ideal property for a 1031. So that's why people that flip properties typically are not doing exchanges, or developers are not doing exchanges because their intent is to sell that asset. And typically, if a developer converts an apartment building to condos, that has now become inventory and it is not eligible for a 1031. However, they could hold on to some of the units, rent them out for 5 years, then that would certainly seem to make sense to do an exchange. Very quickly around partnership interests, understand that they are not exchangeable. So with some advanced planning, you can maybe get where you want to be. But if Alexa and Alec and Eileen and I, we own a property together, 25% each, we don't, and it's in a partnership, we don't get to just sell that building and we each take our 25% and go our merry way. It doesn't work like that. The taxpayer is the partnership. So that partnership can do an exchange, but that requires us all to stick together. Now, there are some strategies, drop and swap, swap and drops, partnership divisions, all sorts of things that can be done. Requires cooperation, requires some advanced planning. Primary residence, not eligible for an exchange. Now, if you have a 2-family or there's some accessory dwelling unit tied to your property, then we can do an exchange as to that portion. But for a primary residence that the taxpayer lives in the past two of the past 5 years, there is an exclusion for a married couple that files jointly the first $500,000 of gain, and for a single person the first $250,000 of gain. That is what you do with a primary. You cannot do an exchange. However, if they move out of that single family or whatever condo that has been their primary and treat it as an investment and rent it out, maybe for a few years, that then should be eligible for an exchange. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the pivotal issue, and people always ask me about how long do I have to hold a property? It's about intent. And as long as the intent is not to liquidate that investment, again, somebody that's buying, fix up and sell, their intent is always to liquidate it. Or somebody that buys to use personally, those are problems, okay? That being said, there are some residential context cases I'll touch on very quickly here. And I'll just give you the takeaway that for the Adams case, for example, if you have a family member that has been using the investment or that will use the new investment, they better be paying fair market rent to the taxpayer. Okay, you got to have a lease, you got to be paying fair market rent. Not sufficient to just be paying the mortgage and the carrying costs. Okay. There are situations where people have moved into their investment following the acquisition. I will tell you again, it is all about intent. Um, Ideally, that is going to be rented out, and maybe at some point down the road, maybe they move into it. There is Revenue Procedure 2008-16 at the bottom here. This is for second homes and vacation homes. So for all the people that have their, condos down in Florida that they rent out for 6 months of the year, they can use that property if it's an investment and they've been renting it out. They can use it for up to the greater of 14 calendar days or 10% of the amount of time it's rented out. So if it's rented out 180 days of the year, the taxpayer can use it 18 days for each of the 12-month cycles after they before they sell and then after they acquire. So that's a safe harbor for second homes and vacations. It's very limited personal use, but it does allow some use. Very important to understand when you have a 1031 exchange is it must be structured as such. And so you must use somebody like myself, a qualified intermediary that has not served as the taxpayer's agent over the prior 2 years. So that means a taxpayer's attorney, their accountant, any of you on the call that are realtors cannot serve as a qualified intermediary. So I'm an objective outside party that is brought in to structure the transaction before the sale occurs. Unfortunately, once a month, I will get a phone call from a taxpayer, calls me up very excited, want to set up an exchange. And when I do my quick vetting, I come to learn that it sold last week, yesterday. The ship has sailed, okay? I must set it up prior to the closing. Here's a little quick picture, just a diagram for those that like pictures. The property is sold to the purchaser, but there is an assignment of that contract of sale to the qualified intermediary. Deed transfers directly to the purchaser. I do not go on the deed. Similarly, when the purchase is made, it passes from the seller to the taxpayer. Again, there's an assignment of that purchase contract to me as the QI. So that's just a quick little diagramming. Bunch of misconceptions around this, so hopefully this clears things up. In order to fully defer all of the gain in tax, two things have to happen. Upon closing, all of the net equity after paying off a mortgage, assuming one exists, after closing costs, brokerage fee, transfer taxes, whatever that net equity is, must come into the exchange account that I establish here at the bank. In order to fully defer all of the gain in tax, the taxpayer must spend all of that net equity. And this is a very important caveat. They must replace the principal balance of debt that they paid off on their relinquished property. That means they either take another mortgage on their replacement and use all the cash from the sale, or they're not forced to take another mortgage. If they're in the financial position, they can buy their replacement property all cash and substitute that debt that they paid off with new equity. Okay. Here's just a very quick working example around a 1031. And it's very helpful to know what the adjusted basis is in the property that's being sold. And that, of course, is a CPA question. But assuming somebody bought something for $1 million, they depreciated it over the course of their ownership for $200,000, and now they're selling it for $2.5 million. In order to understand what their cost basis is, you would look at what did they pay, you subtract the depreciation. If there have been capital improvements, that will add to the basis. But here we have an $800,000 cost basis. So when we subtract that from a $2.5 million sale price, they have a realized gain of $1,700,000. Adding the taxes we discussed earlier, and this is highlighting California, very high state income tax, taxpayer would owe $616,000. That's a big hit to somebody's net worth unnecessarily. And I think, as Alec and Eileen will talk about, I think their product probably gets a 5% return at least, I think, right? Yeah, I'm getting nods. Good. So, that's just on that tax that the taxpayer is paying here in this example. If they didn't do an exchange, they've just left a little under $40,000 a year just on that tax they paid in perpetuity on the table. Okay, it is a very powerful wealth preservation tool. Some critical deadlines, very important to understand. Again, before the closing occurs, I need to get involved in the transaction. I need to get a copy of their contract, their title report. I want to verify the vesting of title. I have a questionnaire they complete for KYC purposes in order to open the bank account. We set everything up before the closing. At the time of closing, two critical deadlines begin. Taxpayer is going to have 45 calendar days to identify replacement property. They must close on that identified property, take title to one or more of those properties by the 180th day following their sale. Okay. So those are the critical deadlines. Now, I know many of you are in Florida. Unfortunately, you get a lot of hurricanes from time to time. And this is for places, outside of Florida, of course. California earlier in the year had a horrible wildfire situation, and they too received postponements to their deadline because of federally declared disasters. So that, be aware, can occur, nothing you are counting on occurring, but when it does, if you are eligible, there will be a postponement to your critical deadlines. Now, I mentioned earlier that by day 45, the taxpayer must identify to me replacement property. So understand that we talked a little about some different strategies. Sometimes a taxpayer has a single asset in mind that they want to buy. However, I'd encourage you, have a conversation with Alec and Eileen. Understand that they have an incredible strategy that could be a backup, or maybe that's just the prime objective. Maybe taxpayer wants to get out of their investment, wants passive income. It's a good setup by way of estate planning. And again, you can go into the single family net lease properties with them. So definitely understand that when you're identifying, most people use the 3 property rule where they can list up to 3 assets without regard to the fair market value. In our earlier example, sold for $2.5 million. If that taxpayer wanted to list 3 things that are $10 million each, no problem. If they want to list 4 or more assets, you now become subject to the 200% rule. And now I need to know the fair market value of each asset. And when we add together the 4 properties, 5, whatever number they're listing above 3, cannot exceed 2 times their sales price. So again, in our example of $2.5 million, they would have $5 million of total real estate to list. So I think Alec and Eileen's, their properties maybe 250,000 to 500,000, if I remember correctly. So if somebody sold for $2.5 million, boy, they get a whole lot of opportunity to diversify into single family net lease property and still be under the 200% rule. So again, you want to be very specific as to the address, the city, the street address, city, state. You want to be very specific. And in all cases, when not identifying 100% of the asset, so you may have heard of Delaware statutory trusts or TIC investments. Anytime the taxpayer is not buying 100% of the asset, they must list that percentage interest also. Again, with Alec and Eileen's strategy, you're getting 100% deeded ownership in the property. So that kind of tackles that. That identification form we provide to the taxpayer, they return it to me by 11:59 p.m., okay, on the 45th day. So that's the ID. What else do we want to talk about right here? I will tell you, I've discussed really the forward exchange, which is 95% of the time, taxpayer is selling first and then acquiring the replacement. Typically, they need the money from a sale to purchase their replacement. However, there are, and this, way outside the scope of what we're going to really talk about, is there are reverse exchanges, sometimes called parking arrangements, as well as improvement exchanges that could allow you to buy a property first and then flip the time period. So now you have to sell within 180 days, or improvement exchanges, which through that same structure of us sitting on title and also performing a role called an exchange accommodation title holder, you can trade down in value and use money in the account to make improvements. So again, my role as the QI is one that CPA, the attorney, the accountant cannot perform. I don't negotiate the contract for the taxpayer. I don't handle closings. I do not give legal advice. I am that independent party that comes in and sets up the exchange. I've been doing this, as I said, for over 20 years. I work for a subsidiary of a $56 billion publicly traded bank holding company. We are subject to government oversight. Understand that 99% of this industry is independent, unregulated, and unfortunately, we've seen Ponzi schemes, bankruptcies. Everybody works directly with me. I am right now at 20 minutes, so I'm going to turn it back over. But feel free to reach out if you have specific questions. If I can be a resource for you, feel free to connect with me. I'm going to stop the screen share. I'm going to hang around to answer some questions as well when we open it up to that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Eric, for that detailed description of 1031 exchange. Really ties a lot into what we do, so we'll get into that a little bit. Before that, I wanted to give Lance Peterson a chance to speak and kind of explain to us what he's seeing in the real estate market here in Florida and, kind of about his business and what he does.
How we doing, guys? And thank you guys all for bringing me on the call today. I was slightly of a last minute add-on per se, but I'm Lance Peterson. I work over in the Tampa market with Corcoran Dwellings. As you guys may know, Barbara Corcoran, of course. We are an affiliate office here in the St. Pete and Sarasota and Tampa markets of all the other offices that we have all over the country. So as we're chatting about the 1031 exchange, and Eric, thank you very much for all that information. That's incredibly valuable, especially for all of us that are realtors or investors on this line, which I'm in both spaces. Making a good relationship with the 1031 exchanger is huge, especially on your investor client space, simply because they are the ones that, of course, do handle the exchange of the monies from one party to another. So it makes things so much more seamless and a lot easier for you in that facet. And especially with Alec and Eileen and all these guys over at CapSchange too, it's a totally it's a super beneficial product that they have going on here. So let's just jump into the market. And guys, I apologize, I don't have a full-on presentation for you, but we're just going to kind of chat on this for a little bit. A little show of hands in the chat. How many people here are in Florida currently? And as you guys are doing that, I'll keep an eye on it as well. As we're all chatting about the real estate markets, of course, the markets are all different all over the country from what I'm seeing. I was just out in San Diego back a few weeks ago for a leadership conference, and the home prices there, of course, are drastically different than what we can get here in Florida. So, of course, the exchange aspect changes a little bit. But, of course, from New York, from Maryland, from Chicago, every single one of these markets is going to be a little bit different. Some are more investor friendly, some are not. As far as Florida is concerned right now, I mean, if we're looking at the condo and the single family home markets, for instance, the single family specifically, the majority of the state of Florida, we're looking at almost 5.5 months right now of single family inventory. Now, guys, in the last couple of years, as we had lower interest rates, of course, we were looking at borderline 3 months, maybe 3.5 months, really across the board. Now, on our side, on the west coast of Florida, we, of course, had the hurricane. So You've seen a lot more houses pop up to the market, a lot that are not even viable anymore. Of course, insurance rates have changed a lot. Also, insurance eligibility for a lot of these homes has changed our market drastically because a lot of those homes can't even be rebuilt anymore. Um, Now, to go along with that, some of you guys down in the Miami markets, for instance, and we saw it all over the news, the structural integrity reports came out as well, which now throws assessments into the ball game. And of course, for all of you investors there, those assessments can really blow your numbers out of the water in some of those cases, whether it's even on HOA homes or condo associations too. Now, the condos, for instance, used to be in that 4 to 5 months of inventory. Now we're looking at almost 10 months of inventory on condos. So, as you guys have all seen, drastic drop in prices. And the reason why I'm talking about the inventory stats is simply because when we're on the investment side of things with the 1031 exchange aspects too, that means there's a lot of negotiation that is on the table. And this is definitely much more of a buyer's market down here in Florida. There are so many homes available. The buyers really have the upper hand now, and you don't see quite as many, um, if you want to call it bidding wars. You don't see quite as many multiple offer scenarios. You still have them occasionally with the houses that are truly viable. But again, the West Coast market, the East Coast market, they're going to be a little bit different, of course. Now, when we're talking about some of the portfolios, as Eric was discussing as well, that's really where you jump into a totally different ball game. And those portfolios can really, as far as expanding your cash flow, the investment strategies, but this 1031 exchange aspect too, just so you guys are aware, I'm also in the financial services industry too. This this is such a valuable tool that is now at your fingertips to be able to move into something that is going to truly see a gain on a regular basis, as opposed to, of course, if you're dealing with hurricanes and uh, situations that are uncontrollable per se, the 1031, of course, is going to be a pseudo controllable scenario for everybody. So again, when it boils down to between the market that we're seeing here in Florida, interest rates, of course, are all over the board. The between the interest rates and what we're seeing now, of course, with a couple drops and expected drops coming up in the next few months as well, we are going to start to see a busier market. And as Eileen and I have built a great relationship, there's a load of opportunity down here, especially right now. Everybody keeps talking about the floor, the ceiling, whatever the situation may be. But reasonably, we're nowhere close to what the drop was back in 2008, for instance. That was a drastically different situation with the way the mortgages being written. If we have any mortgage brokers on here as well, if you guys remember back then, which I was in the mortgage industry back then as well, our average percentages were between 8 and 10%, and we're nowhere near that. So keep that in mind as you guys are watching the market changing. And I mean, we have a lot of New York investors that come down here, a lot of California, a lot of Colorado. I mean, they're all over the country, of course, because it's obviously a big investment area, which in the last year or so it has died a little bit when it comes down to people investing into Florida. But that's mainly in areas that are more hurricane ridden, or maybe have had so much damage. There's so many of those houses that are just not viable anymore. So, do you guys have any questions on anything we've talked about now? I know a lot of it's kind of general information, but of course, I want to give you a temperature on the market down here.
Thank you so much, Lance. I'm glad to see you survived the craziness because I have family over there and it's quite horrendous. So, yeah, you guys, don't be shy. Please put your questions in the Q&A right now. Don't wait until the last 2 minutes of the webinar, please. We are ready to take those questions. So go ahead and put those in the Q&A box as soon as they come to your brain and your fingers to type it out and let us know. But thank you so much, Lance. We really appreciate it, your insight and everything. And yeah, we know there's a lot of difference between West and, East Coast, but nonetheless, I know that you have some great information and we appreciate you coming in here.
Thanks for
And
having
feel
me.
free to drop your like socials in the chat if you'd like anything. We're happy to share.
Yeah, thank you a lot for that introduction, Lance, and we'll definitely make sure to include his information in our follow-up to everyone, just so you can, continue to have him as a resource as you have questions, as you go through the market. And then from there, I'll begin to share our presentation from Cap Free Exchange. So we titled this webinar, Building Wealth with Net Lease Single Family Rentals. It is a 1031 exchange eligible investment that we sell in single family homes, which is great that Eric, touched on that in a pretty thorough manner. But it's not only for 1031 exchange what we sell, it could be for direct investment, just as a way to really build wealth effortlessly, or, build exchange, just very passive income and long-term income. So it's, a solution for your tax bill or your client's tax bill through the 1031 exchange. Very simple way to build passive income. And it's great for beginners or, more experienced and seasoned investors looking for a real estate investment with downside protection. So from there, I think it'll just be helpful to explain a couple of the key concepts associated with the investment we sell, which I'll have Eileen chime in a little bit on soon. But kind of just to go, all the way from the start, our company, CapFree Exchange, we're under the purview of CapView Partners, which is run, by our CEO, John Hamill, who got his start in the real estate industry in 1994 as a broker. He sold over $3 billion of commercial real estate properties, mainly net leased retail. And then from there has about 20 years experience in the real estate fund and management business, with a history and a track record of providing, attractive risk-adjusted returns and yields to investors. This thing also included the formation of a publicly traded REIT. The name is NetStreet, and it's still publicly traded today. The symbol is NTST, I believe. And it was a net leased specific retail REIT. It was sold sometime in the last 5 to 7 years for around 1.3 billion. And it was, I think, a lot of that experience for John with net lease retail really was the genesis of the idea for this investment opportunity we saw, which are, single family homes with the net lease concept applied to it. So, he saw what a great passive investment, income opportunity, net lease retail is. But then the issue with retail is that the value of, for example, a vacant, Walgreens or a CVS, when it's just a vacant building on a corner, the residual value can be sometimes half of the fully leased value. Where, single family homes, we saw it as a much more stable, and predictable asset class, with 300 million Americans that can rent a home. There's a lot more of those than companies out there. So just to start, one of the key concepts I'll have Eileen touch on is kind of what is a net lease? How does that work?
Right. So I guess to make it a little more interactive, you guys can raise of hands if you've never ever heard of a net lease structure or like understand what a net lease structure is. But there's three different types of net lease structures. You have a single net lease, you have a double net lease, and then a triple net lease, which is what we offer. So to give you the short and sweet with a single net lease and a double net lease, a single net lease, you're paying one of the costs associated with the property other than the rent. That could be the property taxes, that could be the insurance. A double net lease, you're going to pay both of those costs associated with the property. So that's going to be rental income, property taxes, and insurance. Now with a triple net lease, the tenant has to pay all costs associated with the property, and that is on a fixed term. So with our product, for example, we have a 10-year term, but we also have a 30-year term. So if you signed a 30-year lease with Appreciation Homes, they are responsible and liable for all of the property taxes, the insurance, any sort of maintenance having to do with the homes, and all of the rental income for the next 30 years. And at no given point in time can they say that they cannot pay you, they owe you that income for the next 30 years.
Yeah, thank you for that,
Yeah.
Eileen. And that's a great segue into the next, concept really, which is, the application of the net lease to the single family home was really ideated into a company called Cap Free Exchange, which CapView partners and our company also has an ownership interest in. And essentially, just to be really clear for everyone, what we sell, it's first and foremost a real estate investment, just like Eric mentioned. When clients, buy the investment we sell, you're buying 100% fee simple title to single family homes. So just like, a home right next door or that you see down the street, that's what you're buying from us. The only difference is that when you buy the home, you're renting it, like Eileen said, with at the your or the client's discretion, a 10-year or a 30-year lease to this company called Appreciation Homes, which Appreciation Homes is pretty much the first and last tenant you're going to need. So I'll kind of let Eileen touch on, what they do as the tenant and what they cover.
Right. So to give you an idea of how appreciation homes kind of comes into this, so the whole concept is that we're providing you with a single family rental home where you have and hold the title. So you can sell whenever you'd like to. You can delegate that title to your children as part of an estate planning tool as well. But essentially, appreciation homes is going to be your tenant and then also your property manager. They're gonna, like I said, pay the property taxes, all costs associated with the property and all of the rental income. But let's say a toilet breaks or something like that. You're not getting the phone call. They're getting the phone call and they're going to take care of it and they're going to pay for the costs associated with that. Let's say prior to 30 years, something happens with the roof. They're going to take care of that and they're going to pay the costs associated with that. So really the idea is you're receiving this passive income, but you're also losing that headache of, having to be the property manager, but also even if you do have a property manager, 9 out of 10 times you have to be on top of the property manager as well, or deal with, whatever issues they're having. So it really removes that overall headache.
Yeah, and just to recap, like Eileen said, by leasing, with the investment we sell and leasing the home to Appreciation Homes, right away, you or your clients get the benefit of everything, you and people like about owning real estate, the tax advantages, the passive income, specifically with our case, and then, appreciation and depreciation over time, minus all of those headaches. Just like she said, if the roof falls through during that 10 or 30-year term, the Appreciation Homes, the tenant is paying for it. And they have a triple B plus credit rating here at the bottom. So, very stable company, very high chance of making those payments compared to a regular tenant, which might be subject to, they might lose their job or, things change. Here you have a company that has, thousands of homes under, committed or to be committed lease agreements, and they have a pool really of homes that they're doing this with, along in partnership with our company to draw off of in case one rental market might not be doing so well, or some portfolios may be doing better than others. You have kind of a built-in management company with also some diversification risks there. So just to kind of recap, Appreciation Homes, they take care of everything from paying property taxes on the home you own. They pay for insurance, and also in the lease agreement they sign with you or your client, they're indemnifying you from, any claims that arise during their operation of the property, which they're just, like I mentioned, essentially a property manager that you or your clients are leasing the home to. So they're going to sublease it to regular, just families and tenants who stay for a period of, 1 to 5 years at a time. And that's on annual leases. And it provides really consistent cash flow because, like Eileen mentioned, it's a triple net lease. There's only one line item you or your clients have to worry about, which is the net income you're going to get. You get around a 5 to 5.5% cap rate or rate of return with what we sell, and that comes in 12 equal monthly payments. So if you buy a home from us, for example, for 500,000 at 5%, that would be $25,000 a year in net lease payments. Divided by 12, you're talking roughly $2,100 a month. That's all you're going to see every single month hitting your bank account. So it's a totally passive investment. All the expenses are covered. And even if expenses change from one year to the next, you're going to get that consistent cash flow, which is a really key element of what we sell. And then for estate planning as well, it's going to provide predictable income. You're going to know what the income is going to be from 2 years from now, as well as 5 years from now, which we do provide increases on the rent payments. There are 1% increases on the rent payments that Appreciation Homes provides. And from there, I'll kind of turn it over to Eileen to talk about, where we have inventory.
Right. So to give you guys an idea, obviously we need to pick very strategic markets for this. And we have a very specific sort of buy box. So one of the things that we really look towards is net migration. Where are people moving? Where are single families moving? Not just young adults, but the actual families. Where do we see them sort of trying to settle down nowadays? Then another thing that we also look for is the job market. So where is there a vast job market? Where are those families more than likely going to need to settle down? Then we also look towards the school systems, the proximity to really good schools. We try to keep these in neighborhoods where it's not, low income housing, or they're going to be people that maybe we assume will move out in a year or two or be evicted or anything like that. We have a very strategic, strict criteria for the type of person that we want in the homes. So that's why we have it set up like this. So if you can see on the map, we have pinpoints of target markets and then targets under consideration that we might be picking up properties in soon. And if you can see, this is more in areas where we've been seeing since 2020, a lot of single families that have been migrating to, as well as investors that are trying to get out of the California market or the New York market, or anyone that's been under the insurance strain in the Florida market. And then we also try to keep the homes within a $250,000 to $500,000 range. And the number one reason that we did that is so that we could take those one-off single-family rental homes that, let's say you're a realtor, you don't really find yourself selling a lot of commercial properties or a lot of rental properties, but every once in a while you have that investor that's selling a single-family rental home for $400,000. They can do a 1031 exchange with us. Then we also try to make sure that these are large homes. So again, if you look at the map, that's why these homes are in these very specific areas. These are areas where we're seeing a lot of appreciation. The markets are not heavily saturated, like, South Florida, for example, is a very heavily saturated market. So we're able to get a home between $250,000 to $500,000 each that's going to be large enough for a single family of, let's say, 4 or 5. But also in areas where they're going to appreciate in value over time, so that when your investor or you goes to sell this property in the future, you're going to receive that additional appreciation on the property. So we try to, that's really what the basis for the criteria. Then we also need them in areas where property taxes are low and insurance is low, since we're assuming all the costs. So that's another example for why we don't have any homes currently in Florida. The insurance is way too high for it right now. And yeah, that's the general concept of how we decide where we're going to pick up homes.
Yeah, and
And
just before I jump to the next slide, one thing I wanted to add, I'm sure some of you might be sitting here and saying, "Hey, I'm in Florida. I don't see Florida on the map. Why are you
yeah,
guys telling me about this?" And the reason is we're a national business, and like Eileen mentioned, these homes come with a long-term lease, so it's a 10 or a 30-year lease on the home, free of all expenses and management, so you're getting a predictable income stream. Just for example, we just sold a home in California, or to a client out of California, was represented by another broker from Remax, and their client bought a home all the way in Alabama. So literally almost coast to coast, an investor who's sitting in California bought a home from us 2 weeks ago in Alabama, just because what we sell is totally passive. So certainly relevant if you're sitting here in Florida just like we are.
yeah. And then also, another thing is that these are newer vintage homes. So we have them between 2015 to today. However, most of the homes we see, like, that we've been bringing, I guess, making available to the market, are between 2019 to 2020. So these are newer, brand new construction, built to rent homes. So like I said in the last slide, we were discussing, we're looking at migration trends. Where are people moving? Why are they moving there? And obviously within the last 5 years, what all of us have seen in the real estate market, a lot of people are moving to, North Florida, towards Florida, Georgia line, or even South Florida. We've seen a lot of migration to South Florida as well. Texas, Arizona, Tennessee, and North Carolina. We're seeing a lot of families come and settle down, and also a lot of young individuals are coming to Florida and settling down. And one of the main reasons that they're heading towards these markets are lower taxes, it's warm, and it's becoming more business friendly. So we're seeing a lot of businesses migrate from New York and migrate from California. We're seeing the tech sectors migrating to Texas and Florida right now. So the job market is kind of heading over this way. And then we also are seeing a lot of people are in remote work past COVID. And a lot of those people, let's say, again, like they're working in California or New York or any of those markets where it's a little more difficult to live there due to taxes and everything. You're seeing them migrate to the Sunbelt states, and then they just, do their job virtually. So those are the things that we're really taking into consideration when it comes to where the homes are located. And then also just long-term appreciation for any investors that come into our product, because that's the ideal outcome, is we want them to eventually have that appreciation and get all those benefits. So
Yeah. So just like Eileen mentioned, Appreciation Homes, they source the inventory. So if you came to us today and said, hey, me or a client wants to buy 500,000 worth of homes, we would show you specific addresses in any of those states if you have a preference on the map that was shown. And you will get to see the actual addresses before you're buying the home. You can conduct full due diligence, even though you're not on the hook for any capital expenditures or issues that arise, but you definitely have that chance. And many clients do fly out to the state and just drive by just to get a feel for the area and know what they're buying, because even though it is totally protected on the downside as far as any capital expenditures or downside in the rental market that might come up, people just like to get comfortable with what they're buying. So there is the opportunity to do that as well. And there's a little bit of background too on Eileen and myself. Between the two of us, we've got over a decade in brokerage experience prior to being here at Cap Free Exchange, and over $200 million of closed investment sales transactions, mostly in the multifamily space, very concentrated in the South Florida market. And as agents, we saw quite often there were clients that while they liked the passive income they were receiving from their properties, it became not so passive as time went on, as turnovers kind of matriculated, and more capital expenditures became on the horizon, like aging roofs or just the day-to-day, the fixing the windows, the ACs, when clients get into that back half of their investment cycle. We saw so many that were interested in the passive investment opportunity that net lease retail provides, but the real issue is that they're just not that comfortable or familiar with retail. When you've owned single family homes or apartment buildings for 20 to 30 years, that's really all you know. And getting into a new food group or a different asset class at that stage might seem like too bit of a risk. So that's why we saw such a great opportunity just from the brokerage perspective at Cap Free Exchange, and why this would resonate with clients is that it's an investment that everyone can understand. I mean, everyone understands that you need a roof over your head. And that's why a big reason why investors trust this model is, number one, the underlying asset, been around as long as time. And secondly, Appreciation Homes, this credit rated company with triple B plus credit, you're really getting a bite at institutional quality credit, and credit grade tenant, with a very small price point, which really private party investors have never had access to, unless you're going above, $10 million dollars and working with like a publicly traded company. So that's really what we offer, is real estate in a very stable, passive manner with literally zero landlord involvement. I mean, what we sell, it's got a long-term lease on it. So you have no exposure to volatility, just like the rental market might go up 2 to 5% or down for a period of 3 to 5 years. Neither would affect you because you're getting that contractually obligated rent from Appreciation Homes, no matter how much they collect from the underlying tenant. They're also aligned with you as the property owner, as your client owns the property leased to them. They really have their best interest in mind, because Appreciation Homes, because they're liable for that rent payment no matter what, they have to maintain the property to a certain standard because they want to keep it rented out and they want to keep it full. So their interest is exactly aligned with the client's interest. And yeah, what we sell, it's backed by a typically appreciating asset. If you look over the last 30 years, any period, since the start of tracking real estate prices, prices for single family homes have not gone down over that 30-year period. Of course, there's always dips. But even if you look at the height of the market, 2006 and 7, before that collapse, I mean, they have prices have eclipsed that peak. And some key differentiators to talk about from other real estate strategies, what we sell, it's totally hands off. Like if you're going to go buy a home just like across the street, you're going to have to be swinging the hammer, fixing pipes, or hiring someone to do it. Or at a minimum, you're going to be, getting the bill from the property manager, which, is a more simple way to do it if you hire a manager. But a lot of times we hear from clients that you have to manage the manager a little bit. And just, definitely keep a lookout for the vendors they're choosing, and make sure you're getting the best prices. So what we sell is totally passive. Again, there might be tenant turnover at the physical property level, but for your client, they're not going to deal with any management calls or turnover. If there's a vacancy, Appreciation Homes, they're going to use a third-party manager to lease it out. They're going to deal with all the tenant calls. They're available, 24/7 for any issues that arise at the property. So you're not going to get any calls about my AC broke or, there's a leaky faucet. Absolutely none of that. And then you or your clients are totally insulated from any operational or repair costs because again, Appreciation Homes in that lease agreement, they're on the hook for all of that. You know, if there is $200 of repairs or $20,000 of repairs in a roof, you're not going to see either of those line items. You're not going to even know about it. There's no maximum amount in that lease agreement as well that Appreciation Homes has to pay up to. There's no limit on it. So there's, absolutely zero carve outs, which is why we say investors are totally insulated from downside from the rental market and also property level performance issues. And it's really great for investors that are retiring, because they're just looking to build passive income. They've worked hard and, the road traveled to get to where they are. This is the next step where they can, really take a load off their shoulders and go travel and just know that they've got something safe and simple to own. And from there, I'll turn it over to Eileen.
Yeah. One thing I do want to add to what he was talking
Mm.
about is, why would, there's many different net lease structures out there. So what's the real key difference between a Walgreens and us? Retail is changing vastly. I think everyone on this call probably uses e-commerce more than they go into a Walgreens, more than they go into a CVS. They probably get most of their stuff from Amazon or online. So, we're seeing retail shifting greatly to the point where Amazon actually outbeat Walgreens as a pharmacy, and now Walgreens is closing about 1,200 stores. So, that being said, people are always going to need a place to live. So I would say that's the number one strong suit between this and maybe a Walgreens or a CVS. So now we're getting into identifying the ideal client profile. So I'll give you an idea of this is where we see investors come into our product, and these are the people that we modeled it for. So we modeled this and created it for longer term single family rental homeowners, multifamily owners, and apartment rental owners that have a difficulty exiting the market. And when we say that, maybe it's they're managing the property themselves, they need to leave something to their kids. They don't want to pay the capital gains taxes, obviously. They have no real exit plan. So for them, this is a way to shield all of the wealth that they've, preserve the wealth that they've built over the last, call it 10, 20 years, but then also be in a structure where if they're in retirement, they're looking more towards estate planning, they can now delegate title to their children. So they can leave their children in a passive income producing opportunity. And that's where we see a lot of clients come in. Actually, we get a lot of clients prior to them listing their properties. So we'll have a lot of brokers come to us. And, I'm sure many brokers on this call can have this client already in their head. Think of that person that realistically, they can't manage the property themselves anymore. They're getting too old. It's an actual hassle for them. If anything, it might be even deteriorating their health or their quality of life. And one of the main reasons they won't sell is because, they need to leave something to their kids. Maybe they want to give them the stepped up basis, what have you. But they also don't want to pay the capital gains taxes and lose all of the wealth that they've generated. So we've had a lot of brokers come to us and kind of put the client in front of us prior to them listing their property. And that way they can get a sense of, okay, this is my exit plan. And it's a very clear exit plan. And not only that, this exit plan also includes my children. So that's the sort of clientele we see coming over to us often. And then especially in today's market, we're getting a lot of last minute 1031 exchanges because, like I said, New York, California, we're seeing a lot of people come out of that market. And oftentimes you have people that are not looking towards retirement yet. They may not even be at the retirement age, or maybe they don't even have children to leave anything to yet. But realistically, they just don't want to reinvest in the market today. They don't want to pick up debt. They don't want to gut renovate a property. They don't want to build anything. They want to wait. So they can do a 1031 exchange with us, and it's a passive income. It's a 5% cap rate with 1% annual rent increases, but they can sell whenever they would like to because they have and hold the title. So then they can sell whenever they want to and 1031 into whichever asset they choose. So because of that, where we're really looking for clients is with a lot of brokers. So we're trying to educate the market, educate brokers, and especially brokers that maybe don't utilize 1031s very often, but they could make a 3% commission fee if they did. Like I said, sometimes if you're a realtor, you're just selling one single family rental home, maybe every 2 years or something, you could still pick up a 3% commission fee on that. Then we're also looking primarily for high net worth individuals that want to preserve the wealth that they have built. We also, lean more towards fund managers, CPAs, QIs like Eric, and then also a lot of foreign investors. So one thing that we can take with our product is foreign investment. And so we do have a wide network of brokers throughout the country that have been introducing us to people from, Dubai, Europe, even the Caribbean. And they're choosing to do not a 1031 exchange with us, but just direct invest so that they have their money in the United States and they own a piece of real estate in the United States. So that is the general sort of clientele that we really look for, but then also the people that we look to promote this product to. So if any of you, again, like if you sell real estate for anyone that has investment properties, keep it in the back of your mind that you could absolutely utilize this to either get them to list their properties or again pick up a 3% commission fee on the other side. So
Yeah,
give it back to Alec. Yeah.
just to tack on to what Eileen said about foreign investors, it's really great what we offer because it's totally passive. So your client could be in Latin America, or literally on the other side of the world and not have to hear a peep about the property, but know that they're buying something that's, dollar denominated, which provides a lot of foreign currency, risk diversification, which we definitely see a lot of clients from the South, South America and Latin America coming for that purpose. And yeah, turn it back to Eileen for the next slide.
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, we have a lot of brokers that present this opportunity to their clients. I would say brokers are typically the bulk of the people that bring us 1031 exchanges. They're very important to our overall business. So one of the ways that I personally believe this is, I guess, best sold or best pitched to your client, really understanding your client's needs. So this is not going to be for every single client that you have. You're going to have a client that might want to get a Walgreens. You're going to have a client that's going to want a QSR. You're going to get a client that wants to pick up a property and gut renovate it right now and get debt. Those people are out there. This is going to be for that person, like I mentioned before, anyone looking towards retirement, they're a longer term investor, they're trying to shield their wealth, or anyone who does not want to invest in this market and needs a last minute 1031 exchange where they have full liquidity. That's what we can bring them. So with that being said, you have to use your discretion and really think about the type of client that you have. Ask them what they're really looking to do, what type of asset class they're really looking to get into. But I would say the number one thing is always ask your client, no matter what, if you're selling a property for them, if it's not a personal property, what are you doing with the proceeds? Have you considered a 1031 exchange? Well, I have all these different options for you. So we're going to be like a tool in your toolbox that you can put in front of them. And if it works out for them, you get a 3% commission fee. But another thing that, to kind of keep in mind is that this is for anyone that's dealing with that management headache. This is for anyone that needs a lifestyle change. This is for anyone looking more towards estate planning. And then this is for anyone who is in a last minute 1031 pinch where they need liquidity. So if you keep those things in mind and any of those pain points come up while you're talking to them, then this is a product you can absolutely plug in.
Yeah, those are some great points. And a lot of clients or investors, they don't transact properties that often. For some people, it might be their first time selling a piece of real estate in 30 years, which is why we also wanted to have, an expert and Eric come on and talk about 1031 exchange because some investors might not be familiar at all, with the fact that, they can defer their taxes and potentially increase their income with what we offer, which is why, we specialize in what we do. But as far as 1031 exchange goes, we would always refer to someone, who's an expert in the matter, because just like we wouldn't give CPA advice, when it's not our area, we would, kind of abide by the same idea, as it relates to advising on, 1031 exchanges and how they work. And net leases, that we sell, the net lease single family homes, can also fit really well along others, other passive investments in real estate. We're not saying this is the holy grail of real estate investing and this is all you or your client should buy. This could be a great way to diversify a little bit of, rental market risk if you own multifamily properties or rental properties and, perceive that the market might go down. Maybe you put a portion of your equity and what we sell. And like Eileen mentioned with that direct title, even though the home might have a 10 or a 30-year lease on it, which is signed brand new when you acquire it, you still have the right to sell it. And then when that lease burns off, you have a home which you could sell to an owner occupant or an investor. Whereas a Walgreens box, like she mentioned, I mean, if you look at that today, that might be a little bit of a tough situation given that they're vacating stores. Um, so with us, you can, totally stabilize your portfolio during a market downturn, or if you perceive one and just kind of want to get into defense mode, you can, park your investment, your cash with what we sell, get the passive income, and then when the time is right, you can sell it through us, or you own the property, so you can sell it for sale by owner. You can list it with any other real estate agent on the market as an investment property. Again, that lease does have to transfer at the sale. So for the term of the lease, it is forever an investment property. But when it expires, you own the real estate and the home just like before. So you're buying 100% of the building and the land, just like buying a home on the street. And this also, can kind of tame down your portfolio's exposure to vacancy or operational risk if you perceive expenses pronating over the last 5 years, which they definitely have here in South Florida. If you look 5 years ago, I mean, insurance was probably 30% of what it is today. And if you're right on the water or close to the water property, it might be an even bigger delta there. So you're totally removing all that risk with what we sell and just locking in a guaranteed income, which is why it works great alongside REITs or other syndication type investments. The only difference is what we're selling is you're getting that 100% fee simple title, where a REIT or a syndicated investment, you're getting a portion of that investment, and you could be subject to property performance level issues. Like if the rental market goes down in a REIT and it's all, an office building REIT and the office market is taking a hit on vacancy, or the rents go down because of that vacancy, your income's going to suffer. Where with us, you're 100% insulated. You're going to get that consistent bond-like income. Talking a little more about tax benefits of the net lease single family home investment. These are eligible completely for depreciation write-offs over that 27.5 year schedule, just like any other residential investment. So this reduces your taxable income, as well as if you do take any debt when you buy this investment from us, which you can get debt to answer that question. That's a write-off as well. So the net lease provides you a really straightforward way to see exactly what your cash flow is. And, with a touch of leverage, you can definitely still, positively cash flow up to about 60% loan to value, even a little bit more. With a debt partner that we have, you can get interest only financing or your client scan, which still would show positive cash flow, even with where rates are today and that low to mid six range of where the return, we offer. There's also a tax advantage, to scale. As you add more properties, you're building that depreciation write-off. So a lot of clients or first-time investors come our way if they're like doctors or they've been working at it for 30 years in some industry and they're just getting in real estate investing. They they want an easy way and a simple way to invest, and that's exactly what we offer, where they're going to get a passive income that might set up a retirement or the beginning of what retirement looks like for them, and then also start taking some write-offs that they can benefit from. It's also great for trust strategies because as if you hold these properties in a trust, you can break them up to all or part of an estate depending on how many heirs you might have. So it's a way to know that the future generations are going to have beneficial income, um, you know, in the future. And yeah, I'll turn it back to Eileen.
Okay. So basically, so like he mentioned, we can, obviously secure financing for any of these homes. We have a lending partner. They're called Newberger Berman. So if any of you ever have clients that are coming into this and they need financing, whether it's direct investment or they're doing a 1031 exchange with us, we do have a lending partner that has pretty competitive rates, and a lot of our clients have been really happy with what we've been able to secure for them. So yeah, I guess
Yeah.
we'll move on to the next slide. So how do we build a pipeline of repeat buyers and referrals? So this is kind of like what I was discussing before, which is, how do we go out there and find who's the optimal person to sell this, who has the correct clients, who has the right clientele. So basically, a really important aspect to this is educating your clients on the 1031 exchange market, the net lease market, and then essentially what they're missing out on if they choose to not do a 1031 exchange. And then being able to have multiple different options for them to choose from. Because like I said, we're not going to be, the person that you use every single time, because it's not going to be optimal for every single client. So you want to have a multitude of 1031 exchange options. So at any given point in time, your client comes to you and says, hey, I want to do a 1031 exchange. I heard about the 1031. How do I do it? You're like, well, great. I spoke with this QI, just like you spoke with Eric, spoke with this QI, spoke with this 1031 company. I have this CPA. I can help you out. And one of the main reasons why we talk about this so often and we are trying to educate brokers on this matter is because a lot of brokers are losing a vast amount of, commission that they could receive on the back end if they just simply plug their client into a 1031 exchange. And it's not that much work, especially even on our end. You just have to give us a call. We'll handle absolutely everything for you. We'll make sure that you're along in the process no matter what. But again, you just have to hand over the client, and then you get whatever commission fee you get from either us or any other 1031 exchange company. So,
Yeah, and just to tack on to what Eileen said, we do pay a commission to licensed real estate agents in Florida. For any transactions that you do with us, we pay a 3% commission. That's on the value of the homes they buy from us. Although our company is not a brokerage by practice, we do maintain a Florida brokerage license just to have a mechanism to pay agents. And as long as you're licensed in Florida, we have a way to pay you. We're partnered with a broker of record service that's licensed in, I believe, 46 of the total states. So, we have a licensed broker in the state for, any of these homes. So if you're selling a home in Alabama, we have a broker of record who's licensed there that's going to, legally disperse the commission right to your broker in accordance with, the rules of the local real estate commission. Yeah, and I'll put it back to Eileen just for working with, 1031 accommodators and intermediaries, how brokers can kind of add that into what they do.
great. So like I mentioned in the last slide, that's kind of a resource that, again, if you want to reach out to Eric, because he is someone who does this nationally on a national scale, I'm sure he can help you out with any transactions that you have. You want to have that sort of Rolodex. So at any given point in time, your client needs anything from you, you have those resources readily available to them. I think we should hand it off because I don't know how much time we have left. I think we should go to slide 20, which is the transaction example, because I think
Yeah.
we went through a good bulk of this already.
We're gonna have to
Working
have
with
you
the
guys
accommodator.
back.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a part two on
Yeah,
this.
we're gonna have to have so I just want to jump to that because I feel like we already went through a lot of what's on those slides. I would prefer to utilize this time to show you what a transaction actually looks like with us. So I'll hand that off to you, Alec. You can
Yeah,
yeah.
sounds great. And just to touch quickly one last time on, educating clients, we're always huge proponents as prior agents of having that conversation early and often of what clients are going to do with their proceeds, because that can lead to stalled deals, and getting ahead of that can increase your transaction probability. So one example of a transaction we recently did, there was a client in Texas. This owner had about 5 homes that were valued at roughly $2 million. They were definitely like 60s and 70s vintage homes. They were self-managed for a long period of time. And at the time he acquired the homes, he was getting about, or owned them, was getting about $50,000 in net income. The properties were aging, the capital expenditures were building. There was definitely one or two roofs on the horizon that he had to replace. And instead of going through that CapEx and, renovating the properties to get market rents, he sold his homes with a local agent in Texas. Net proceeds were just shy of $2 million. I think it was about 1.9 million, and ended up acquiring a portfolio of homes from us in Georgia. So, that agent got compensated, of course, for selling them the single family homes we sell. And now the client actually boosted his income because it's the 5% rate of return on the purchase price at about $1.9 million. His income went to 90,000. So nearly doubled his income, avoided, two roofs and hundreds of thousands of dollars of capital expenditures on the horizon. And then also his tax bill was 100% eliminated. And now he's got these homes on a long-term 30-year net lease, and he knows his estate, which, he has a daughter who is a doctor, I believe, doesn't have anything to worry about, even though there's no real estate background at all, with his heirs. He knows that there's going to be a stable and predictable income along the way.
Yeah.
So that's just one
And
example of how, we solve really all of the problems in one swing.
And one of the main reasons we, like to use this example is because he was one of those investors that came to us before listing his properties on the market. So like I said, we talk to investors prior to them listing their properties on the market if they're looking towards estate planning. That was a big thing for him. He had a massive portfolio and his daughter is not well versed in real estate. He wanted to leave her with something. So that was one of the main reasons he did a 1031 exchange with us. It was really cool. We got to, speak with him before he even listed his properties on the market and all of that. And, it's a really interesting deal. So yeah. And then I guess we're gonna go to a Q&A. If we even do we have time for a Q&A?
We always make time for
Oh,
the
okay. Okay.
Yeah, we have to make the people happy.
Right.
So let's run through it, guys. Take a picture. You can also find them on our website under the vendor partners tab. So be sure to get connected with Eileen and Alec. If you have any questions at all, if we didn't get to your question, we're gonna do our absolute best. We're gonna run through them right now. But let's go ahead and go and start. I'm pretty sure you guys answered this one, but we have a question here. Why would a client choose this over buying a rental property the traditional way?
I guess we
Yeah,
did.
I could touch on that. Just with traditional rentals, you're managing repairs, tenants, any tenant calls that arise, turnover. What we sell is fully passive. So the tenant that you get when you buy the home from us is Appreciation Home. So they handle all the management, all the maintenance. They pay taxes, they pay insurance. So it's just bond-like income, but backed by properties. So it's everything that you like about real estate. Income, appreciation, tax advantages, minus all the headaches.
And
Exactly, you guys.
one thing I do want to say, I know a lot of people like to, I've had people make I guess, the argument of, well, then I'll put a property manager in. Again, most of the time,
No,
even if you do
no.
have a property manager, you got to be on top of the property manager. The
Yeah,
property's manager is calling you because the toilet broke and you need to pay for it. So it's like, that's really the number one
slippery
thing we're
slope,
taking away from you. Yeah, is that overall headache.
which we love that. I mean, Anish and I, we don't get our hands dirty over here. We are
Yeah.
like definitely not that type, but like, for example, like my husband's parents, they are like doing everything themselves. Like, gosh, they get all the credit because that is
Yeah,
intense.
it's
So,
hard.
all
Yeah.
right, let's keep it going. Let's kind of try to rapid fire if possible, but we got to get through these. All right, how do your typical cap rates compare to other retail or office net leased options? And sorry if these are repetitive for you guys.
Yeah, not at all. The cap rate conversation, we're competitive, I would say, with other office and retail options, given that our cap rate is in that 5.5% range. Definitely competitive and sometimes better than, especially if you're looking at retail with like a brand new lease and a brand name tenant. And then the other angle is that, with us, you're not subject to any like sector level or consumer level changes. Like, if people all of a sudden don't want to go to Chick-fil-A anymore, which I don't foresee that, then that tenant paying you rent is going to change, or the office sector is constantly changing. With us, people aren't going to stop needing a roof over their heads. So I just think from that perspective, a little bit more stable, the underlying tenant and income source, and then the depreciation schedule with us is better by about 40% because What's the depreciation schedule, Eileen, for commercial, like compared to us?
39 years. We're 27.5, commercial's 39 years. So even though this is like a commercial lease, because the underlying asset is a single family home, you're getting the depreciation schedule of a single family home with a commercial lease, which is pretty cool, in my opinion. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, hopefully that answered your question. What are the benefits for the tenants of these properties?
The people that physically live in them.
For the properties that you are selling. Andres, maybe you
I
have to
would
clarify
say
your
the
question.
number one benefit is sort of the trend that we're seeing with, obviously, as sad as this is to say, even if interest rates drop tomorrow, a lot of people within their 30s and 40s cannot afford to be a homeowner. And that really comes down to the consumer price index and how far it's hiked up since 2007, and wages haven't really met up with that. But in general, we're opening up these homes that were built for these families in general. These single family homes were built by developers with the notion that eventually someone would purchase it and live in it, or an investor would purchase it and maybe rent it out. I mean, that's what a lot of developers are doing now because they're seeing nobody's purchasing homes in this market. But we're opening up these single family homes in markets that are growing. We're seeing a lot of the job markets over there are expanding. A lot of companies are moving into the Sunbelt states. And so we're able to open up this inventory of single family homes that otherwise they wouldn't be able to live in by giving them the ability to rent it.
All
If
Yeah,
right.
that
Well,
answers your question to the best of my ability. But
yeah,
like
Andres.
that's my
Andres.
personal opinion. Unfortunately, that's the reality of the market. Even if interest rates drop today and everyone was making $100,000, it would still be difficult for people to pick up, buy a home right now. So yeah.
yeah, just to add on quickly, the homes, that we sell or lease to Appreciation Homes, they're your tenant, but Appreciation Homes is totally aligned with your interest. It is also the best interest of the renter because they want to keep it, nicely maintained and
Yeah.
functional, so that way the tenant keeps paying rent.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, another question. Is the triple net like an option of rent to own?
No.
No, it's not, Andres. Sorry
Not
about
not
that.
that not that we've never been asked that before. But no, I mean the investor owns it. It's packaged up under an absolute net lease. So unfortunately, the tenant Appreciation Homes is the tenant, but I guess the subleasing tenant is not renting to own.
Yeah, and
Thank
this is an investment sale opportunity. So just like you're buying
Yeah.
a home for an investment, you're buying a home for 250,000, you're buying it, you're taking the title to it, and instead of renting it to a family, it's coming with this corporate tenant, Appreciation Homes, on a long-term lease. So there's no rent to own program here. This is just purely an investment opportunity in real estate.
There you go, guys. And then David's question was very similar to one that we just answered, asking about the typical cap rates comparing to other retail or office net lease options because he has clients who are familiar with the retail triple nets but haven't heard about being done in residential. So let us know if you have more questions about that, David. If we answered that for you, we're going to keep moving. Another one, does this also work in condos or just single family?
We currently only have this structure for single family homes at the moment.
Thank you so much. Someone's asking how to secure financing. I don't know if that applies here.
Yeah, you can get financing. We have a debt partner, but you can also use any other lender to underwrite our investment and give you debt. Being that it's an investment property, it's most likely going to be on a DSCR, debt service coverage basis. But with a debt partner that we have, Neuberger Berman, they offer interest-only financing, pretty close to 6.25 interest only. And even though our investment is offered at about a 5% cap rate, with some of the slightly higher cap rates we offer, like in our Alabama portfolios, which is more around 5.5, you can cash flow up to 65% loan to value. So a 35% down payment, you can get into this investment and it's a positive cash flowing investment.
Perfect. There you go, guys. Thank you guys for staying on a little bit longer here. We love answering your questions, so we're gonna do that. Some positive feedback from Noah. really appreciate your efforts. Grateful for this information. Thank you so much, Noah. We all appreciate that feedback. Brandy, a benefit of renting is that the tenants don't have to pay for repairs. What is the value prop for the tenants you place? Okay, we did answer that as well. So I hope we answered your question, Brandy. Feel free to reach out to Alec or Eileen if you do have any questions. Lance, if you did have any questions you wanted to answer, feel free to pop in. Um,
Yeah, I was just going to
more,
mention,
more
Alec,
positive
would,
feedback.
sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying we just got some more positive feedback that people are excited to present this opportunity to their clients. So thank you, Joshua,
Exciting.
for that.
Alec, I was just going to ask, would you be so kind to put the contact information for y'all's lender in the chat, just so then it's readily available for any of the investors or realtors that are in this space today?
Yeah,
Thank
we'll
you.
certainly do that and, include your information as well as Eric's in our
Yeah.
follow-up email. And also just a really short and easy to understand video on what we offer because it is, can be a newer concept.
Thank you guys so much. And thank you, Eric. I know he had to just drop off just now. And thank you guys for sticking on until the very end. I do have the two winners for the raffle. And again, thank you guys so much for staying on. I really, really appreciate it. So I have the two winners for the $100 Amazon gift card. And it is, drum roll, congratulations, Janice R. and Brandy F. I will be in touch with both of you, send you over to the Cat Free Exchange team, and I will grab your emails from your Zoom registration. So hopefully there's no typos in there, or else you're gonna have to find me to claim your raffle. So you guys, thank you. I mean, Alec and Eileen, thank you guys so much, and Lance, thank you guys so much for your time today. That was a lot, and I know it's like it's complicated, but it's not at the same time. So I appreciate you guys really breaking it down for us. And we did record today's session. So you guys, please feel free to review this replay, share it with somebody who needs it, share it with your partners, anyone you think that can benefit from this. But I'm really happy with what we got done today. And we'll just have to have you guys back because we had so many questions and a lot of interest, and I hope you guys are all happy that you spent the time with us today because I definitely am, and I feel a lot better knowing what you guys are up to, who you're serving, and just getting to know you guys a little bit better. So thank you so much for the time. And any final words?
Well, thank you
Well,
so much for having us on, and thank you everyone who joined. And yeah, hopefully we'll all be in touch.
Yeah, thank you all for
yay.
your time.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
All
Thank
right,
you for
thank
all the
you.
positive feedback in the chat. I'm gonna bother you guys since you're here. Go ahead and give us 5 stars on Google if you love this webinar, and tell us your thoughts on what we provided today. If you have time, I would appreciate that. Thank you guys so much, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. We will have, I believe we have more events for you guys next week. So get plugged in, go check the events on the calendar on our website, and I'll be following up with each and every one of you from me, Alexa at bpmreia.com. Sorry if I just set off your devices. And yeah, look out for my thank you email. I'll be in touch with each and every one of you. So bye guys.
Bye.
Have a
Thank
great
Bye.
day.
you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
guys.
Bye bye.